I opened the door expecting sympathy after burying my husband, but instead my mother-in-law shoved a suitcase into my chest and hissed, "Pack your things and get out of my son's house. You're worthless now that he's gone." My name is Jennifer Martinez. I'm 38 years old, and 3 days ago, I buried the love of my life. Michael and I had been married for 15 years, building a beautiful life together in our home in Charlotte, North Carolina. We had one daughter, Emma, who just turned 13. Michael worked as a successful investment banker while I dedicated myself to being a stay-at-home mom, something we both agreed was best for Emma's upbringing. We weren't just husband and wife, we were best friends, partners in everything. Then a drunk driver ran a red light on a rainy Tuesday evening, and my entire world shattered in an instant. The funeral was yesterday. I stood there in my black dress, holding Emma's trembling hand as they lowered Michael's casket into the ground. The North Carolina sun beat down mercilessly, as if mocking the darkness that had consumed our lives. Emma sobbed into my shoulder, and I tried to be strong for her even though I felt like I was drowning. My mother-in-law, Patricia Caldwell, stood across from us with dry eyes and a tight expression I couldn't quite read. She hadn't spoken to me since we arrived at the cemetery, which I found strange, but attributed to grief taking different forms in different people. After the service, people came back to our house, our beautiful 4-bedroom colonial that Michael and I had bought 8 years ago. Friends and family filled the rooms with hushed conversations and casserole dishes. Patricia stayed for exactly 20 minutes before announcing she was tired and leaving without saying goodbye to Emma or me. I thought it was odd, but honestly, I was too exhausted to care. I just wanted everyone to leave, so I could collapse and finally let myself fall apart. If you're connecting with this story, please hit that subscribe button. We're working toward our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. Just click the red subscribe button below this video. The following morning, I woke up to find Emma already dressed and sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched bowl of cereal. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, mirrors of my own grief. The house felt too quiet, too empty, without Michael's presence. I made coffee with shaking hands, spilling grounds across the counter. Everything felt wrong, like I was moving through someone else's life instead of my own. Around 10 in the morning, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, but lately everything felt unexpected, like I was constantly bracing for the next terrible thing. I opened the door to find Patricia standing there with 2 large men I'd never seen before. She was dressed impeccably in a navy pantsuit, her silver hair perfectly styled, looking nothing like a woman who had buried her only son the day before. Something about her expression sent a chill down my spine. "Patricia, I wasn't expecting you. Come in," I said, stepping aside. She didn't move to enter. Instead, she crossed her arms and looked at me with an expression of pure contempt. "I'm not coming in as a guest, Jennifer. This is my son's house, and I'm here to take possession of it." I blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" "My granddaughter Emma has inherited everything. The house, the accounts, all $33 million Michael accumulated. And as her guardian, I'll be managing her inheritance and her living arrangements." Patricia's voice was cold, clinical, like she was discussing a business transaction rather than her son's estate. My heart started pounding. "Guardian? I'm her mother. I'm her guardian." Patricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Not according to Michael's will. He made me Emma's legal guardian in the event of his death. He also left everything to Emma, not to you. This house belongs to her now, which means it belongs to me as her guardian. So, I'm here to tell you to pack your things and leave." The world tilted beneath my feet. "That's impossible. Michael would never do that. We talked about our wills. Everything was supposed to be split between Emma and me, with me as her guardian. You must be mistaken." "There's no mistake. I have the documents right here." Patricia pulled a folder from her designer handbag and waved it at me without letting me see the contents. "Now, I've brought these gentlemen to help ensure you leave peacefully. You have 2 hours to gather your personal belongings. Everything else stays here." "Where's Emma? I need to talk to Emma." My voice cracked with panic. "Emma is already with me. She came to my house last night, actually. Smart girl. She knew where she'd be properly cared for. Patricia checked her watch like this was just another appointment in her day. Your subscription really helps this channel grow. We're so close to hitting 1,000 subscribers, and you can be part of that milestone by clicking subscribe right now. It takes just 1 second. You can't take my daughter from me. This is insane. I tried to push past her, but one of the large men stepped forward, blocking my path. Patricia's eyes hardened. I can and I have. Michael wanted his daughter raised with proper values and financial security. He clearly didn't trust you to manage his estate or raise Emma appropriately. Now, you can leave peacefully or these gentlemen will remove you. Your choice. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Patricia, please. Michael loved me. We had a good marriage. There must be some mistake with the paperwork. Let me call our family lawyer, Thomas Henderson. He'll clear this up. Thomas Henderson doesn't represent this family anymore. I have my own attorney handling Michael's estate. His name is Richard Beaumont, and he's already reviewed everything. It's all perfectly legal. Patricia's smile grew wider, almost triumphant. You have 1 hour and 45 minutes now. I suggest you start packing. I have no money, nowhere to go. Michael and I shared accounts. How am I supposed to live? The reality of what she was saying finally crashed over me like a wave. Patricia shrugged, actually shrugged. That's not my problem. You should have thought about that before you spent 15 years as a parasite, living off my son's hard work. Go get a job like normal people do. Maybe you'll finally contribute something to society instead of just playing house. Playing house? I raised your granddaughter. I took care of your son. I managed our home. Our life together. Tears streamed down my face now, and I hated that she could see me cry. And you were compensated for it with a comfortable lifestyle that you clearly didn't earn. Now that gravy train has reached its final station, go find somewhere else to mooch off of. Patricia turned to the men. If she's not packed and out in 2 hours, remove her forcibly. Call the police if necessary. She's trespassing on my granddaughter's property. She walked away without another word, her heels clicking decisively on our front walkway. Our walkway. The walkway Michael and I had chosen together when we bought this house. I stood there frozen, unable to process what had just happened. One of the men cleared his throat uncomfortably. Ma'am, you should probably start packing. Mrs. Caldwell doesn't make idle threats. I stumbled back inside, my legs barely holding me up. This couldn't be real. It had to be a nightmare, an extension of the horrible nightmare I'd been living since Michael died. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and called Thomas Henderson, our family lawyer who had helped us draw up our wills 5 years ago. Thomas, it's Jennifer Martinez. I need your help immediately. My words tumbled out in a rush as I explained what had just happened. There was a long pause. Jennifer, I'm sorry, but I received a letter from the Caldwell family attorney 3 days ago informing me that I was no longer needed for any estate matters. I don't have access to Michael's current will. I only have the version from 5 years ago. What did that version say? The one we signed together. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. In that version, everything was split between you and Emma, with you as her guardian. But wills can be changed at any time. If Michael created a new will, it would supersede the one I have. I'm sorry, Jennifer. I wish I could help more, but without access to the current documents, there's nothing I can do. You need to get a copy of the will that's being executed. We need your help to reach 1,000 subscribers. If this story is resonating with you, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Your support makes a huge difference. I hung up and immediately tried calling Patricia's phone. It went straight to voicemail. I tried 7 more times. Every single call went to voicemail. Then I called my own daughter's cell phone, the phone Michael and I had given her for emergencies. A man answered. This is Richard Beaumont, attorney for the Caldwell estate. Emma is not available to speak with you at this time. All communication needs to go through me. Please have your attorney contact my office. He rattled off a phone number and hung up before I could say anything. They'd taken her phone. They'd actually taken my daughter's phone and given it to their lawyer. I sank onto the couch, The same couch where Michael and I had cuddled every evening while watching movies, and I screamed. I screamed until my throat was raw, until I had no voice left. Then I cried. I cried until I thought I might dissolve into nothing. But I couldn't dissolve. I had to think. I had to figure this out. With shaking hands, I went to our home office, Michael's office, and started looking through files. The desk drawers were locked. I'd never noticed that before because I never had a reason to go through Michael's business papers. I found a screwdriver and forced the locks open, not caring about the damage. Inside were files, bank statements, and investment records. As I flipped through them, my confusion deepened. There were accounts I didn't know existed. Large transfers to something called Caldwell Family Trust. Regular payments to Patricia's personal accounts, thousands of dollars every month for years. Email printouts showing correspondence between Michael and his mother about keeping Jennifer in the dark about the full extent of the assets. My hands shook as I read email after email. They dated back 3 years. In them, Patricia convinced Michael that I was a gold digger, that I would try to take everything if something happened to him, that Emma needed to be protected from my materialistic influence. The emails showed Michael's resistance at first, then slowly his words changed. He started agreeing with her. He started questioning our marriage, our life together.
But why?
We were happy. Weren't we happy? I racked my brain for signs I'd missed, red flags I'd ignored. Had Michael been planning to leave me? Had our entire marriage been a lie?
No. I refuse to believe that.
The Michael I knew, the man I'd loved for 15 years, wouldn't do this. Patricia must have manipulated him, poisoned him against me somehow. But even as I thought it, doubt crept in. How could I not have known? How could I have been so blind? The men knocked on the door. "Ma'am, you have 30 minutes left." I grabbed my laptop, stuffed clothes randomly into suitcases, threw toiletries into bags. I took photo albums, Emma's baby books, my jewelry box. I took Michael's favorite sweater, because it still smelled like him. I took Emma's favorite stuffed rabbit that she'd had since birth. I worked like a robot, not thinking, just moving, because if I stopped to think, I would collapse. 28 minutes later, I stood on the sidewalk with 3 suitcases, 2 boxes, and a duffel bag. Everything I owned from 15 years of marriage fit into my Honda Civic. The men changed the locks while I watched, physically changing the locks on my own home. Former home. Not my home anymore. Please help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers by clicking that subscribe button. We're building a community here, and your subscription matters. I drove to a budget motel near the highway, the kind with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign. I paid for 3 nights with a credit card in my wallet, praying it wouldn't be declined. It went through. I sat on the thin mattress in the dingy room and called my sister Rachel in Denver. "Rachel, something terrible has happened." I told her everything, the words spilling out between sobs. "Oh my God, Jen. That's insane. That can't be legal. You need a lawyer, like yesterday." Rachel's voice was shocked and angry. "Do you have money for a lawyer?" "I have maybe $3,000 in our joint checking account, if Patricia hasn't already frozen it. I don't know what I have access to anymore." I pulled up my bank app, and my heart sank. The account showed a balance of 0. Frozen or emptied. It didn't matter which. I had exactly $247 in cash in my wallet and whatever was left on my credit card. "Come to Denver. Stay with me and Tom until you figure this out." Rachel's offer was generous, but I couldn't accept. "I can't leave Charlotte. Emma's here. I need to fight for my daughter." My voice broke on the last word. "Then let me send you some money. I'll wire you $5,000 tomorrow morning. That should be enough to retain a lawyer and keep you going for a bit." Rachel was crying now too. "Thank you. God, thank you. I'll pay you back, I promise." I had no idea how I would keep that promise, but I meant it. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I lay in that awful motel bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, trying to understand how my life had imploded so completely in less than a week. Michael was dead. My daughter had been taken from me. My home was gone. My money was gone. Everything was gone. And I had no idea why. The next morning, I used Rachel's wired money to retain an attorney named Margaret Chen who specialized in family law and estate disputes. Her office was small but neat, and her eyes were kind but realistic as she listened to my story. I'm not going to lie to you, Jennifer. If Michael's most recent will genuinely names Patricia as Emma's guardian and leaves everything to Emma, we have an uphill battle. However, we can challenge the will on several grounds. First, we can argue undue influence, that Patricia manipulated Michael into changing his will. Second, we can argue that your rights as a parent supersede any guardianship designation. And third, we can request immediate visitation rights while we sort out the legal mess. Margaret made notes as she spoke, her pen moving swiftly across a legal pad. How long will this take? I asked. Honestly, these cases can take months, sometimes over a year. Courts move slowly, especially in estate disputes involving significant assets. But I can file an emergency motion for visitation within 24 hours. That's our first priority. No matter what the will says, you have parental rights. Margaret's confidence gave me my first glimmer of hope. What about money? I have almost nothing. How am I supposed to live while this drags on? The practical reality of my situation was suffocating. You can file for emergency spousal support from the estate. The court can order that reasonable living expenses be paid to you during the dispute. It's not guaranteed, but given your circumstances, I'd say we have a decent shot. Margaret handed me a stack of forms. Fill these out. Be thorough and honest. We need to show the court exactly what your situation is. We're getting so close to 1,000 subscribers. If you're finding value in this story, please click subscribe and join our growing community.
It really helps the channel.
I spent the entire day filling out forms, documenting 15 years of marriage in cold legal language. I had to list every asset I knew about, every account, every piece of property. I realized how little I actually knew about our finances. Michael had handled everything. I trusted him completely. That trust now felt like the most naive decision I'd ever made. 2 days later, Margaret filed the emergency motion for visitation. The hearing was set for the following week. In the meantime, I had to survive. I had to find a job because Rachel's $5,000 wouldn't last forever, and I'd already spent $1,500 on Margaret's retainer. I hadn't worked in 15 years. My degree was in English literature, utterly impractical in the job market. I started applying for retail positions, administrative assistant roles, anything I was even remotely qualified for. Most applications disappeared into the void. A few places called me in for interviews. Those interviews went poorly. I was a 38-year-old woman with no recent work experience, competing against 22-year-olds who would work for minimum wage. I was overqualified and underqualified simultaneously. Meanwhile, I heard nothing from Patricia or Emma. My calls went to voicemail. My texts went unanswered. I drove by Patricia's house in the wealthy Myers Park neighborhood, a sprawling estate behind iron gates. I couldn't even get close. Security cameras tracked my car, and when I tried to ring the intercom, no one responded. I sat in my car outside those gates and cried. My daughter was somewhere inside that house, and I couldn't reach her. Did she think I'd abandoned her? Did Patricia tell her lies about me? The not knowing was torture. The visitation hearing arrived. I dressed in my best outfit, a black pantsuit I'd worn to Michael's funeral. It was the only professional clothing I owned. Margaret met me outside the courtroom and squeezed my hand reassuringly. Just be honest. Don't let them provoke you into anger. Stay calm and factual. Her advice was solid, but hard to follow when my entire life was on the line. Patricia arrived with Richard Beaumont, a man in his 60s with silver hair and an expensive suit. They looked confident, wealthy, powerful. I felt small and insignificant by comparison. But then I saw Emma walking behind them, and my heart shattered all over again. Emma, baby. I started toward her, but Richard Beaumont stepped between us. There's a restraining order in place. You need to maintain a distance of at least 50 feet from Emma Caldwell. His voice was cold and professional. Caldwell? Her name is Martinez. Emma Martinez. I looked at Margaret desperately. There's no restraining order filed. We would have been notified. Margaret's voice turned sharp. You can't enforce an order that doesn't exist. It was filed yesterday afternoon. Check your emails. Richard pulled out his phone and showed Margaret something. Her face darkened. This is procedurally irregular and I'll be filing an objection. But yes, there appears to be a temporary restraining order. Jennifer, I'm sorry. You can't approach Emma right now. Margaret looked as shocked as I felt. Subscribe to the channel if you're following along with this story. We're working hard to reach 1,000 subscribers, and every subscription counts. Just click the button below. I watched my daughter walk into the courtroom without even looking at me. She'd grown taller in just the week since I'd seen her. She wore new clothes, expensive clothes I'd never seen before. Patricia had her hand on Emma's shoulder possessively. The hearing was brutal. Richard Beaumont presented the will, notarized and witnessed just 4 months before Michael's death. It clearly stated that Emma was to inherit everything, and Patricia was named as her guardian. He presented documentation of the $33 million in assets, most of which I'd known nothing about. He painted me as a woman who'd lived off Michael's wealth while contributing nothing, who had no job skills and no means of supporting Emma. Margaret fought back hard. She pointed out that I'd been a dedicated mother and wife for 15 years, that Michael and I had made a mutual decision for me to stay home with Emma, that I had every right to visitation with my biological daughter regardless of guardianship status. She argued that the restraining order was frivolous and punitive. The judge, a tired-looking woman in her 50s named Judge Morrison, listened to both sides. Finally, she spoke. I'm going to order a full investigation into the circumstances surrounding this will. It's unusual for a spouse to be completely disinherited without clear cause. However, until that investigation is complete, the will stands as written. Patricia Caldwell retains guardianship of Emma Martinez Caldwell. The judge paused. However, I'm dissolving the restraining order. There's no evidence of abuse or danger. Jennifer Martinez is entitled to supervised visitation with her daughter. I'm ordering 2-hour visitation sessions twice per week, supervised by a court-appointed guardian ad litem. I almost collapsed with relief. At least I'd get to see Emma. At least she'd know I hadn't abandoned her. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, I'm ordering that the estate pay Jennifer Martinez temporary spousal support of $5,000 per month and cover reasonable housing expenses up to $2,000 per month, effective immediately. These orders remain in place until the investigation concludes or further court order. Richard Beaumont's face darkened, but he nodded. Patricia's expression didn't change, but I saw her jaw tighten. The first supervised visit was scheduled for 3 days later. I showed up 30 minutes early to the visitation center, a bland office building with cheerful children's decorations that felt completely at odds with the circumstances. The supervisor, a kind woman named Denise, explained the rules. We'd have 2 hours. I couldn't discuss the legal case with Emma. I couldn't speak negatively about Patricia or Michael. I could only focus on maintaining our relationship. When Emma walked in, escorted by Patricia, my breath caught. She looked at me with confusion and anger, emotions I'd never seen directed at me before. Hi, baby. I've missed you so much. I opened my arms, but Emma didn't move toward me. Grandma Patricia says you're trying to steal my inheritance. Emma's voice was cold, rehearsed. She says you never loved Dad. You only wanted his money. My heart broke into even smaller pieces. Emma, that's not true. I loved your father more than anything except you. There's been a terrible misunderstanding, but I promise you, I've never wanted to take anything from you. Then why are you suing Grandma Patricia? Why are you trying to take me away from her? Emma crossed her arms defensively, and I saw so much of Patricia in that gesture. If this story is touching your heart, please subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means everything to this channel. I'm not trying to take anything away from you. I just want to be your mom. I want us to be together. That's all I've ever wanted. Tears streamed down my face. The 2 hours were the longest and shortest of my life. Emma slowly thawed a little, enough to tell me about school and her friends. She didn't call me Mom once, though. She kept her distance. By the end, She'd at least let me hug her, but it was stiff and uncomfortable. I'll see you in a few days, okay? I love you so much. I squeezed her tight, memorizing the feeling of holding my daughter. Okay. Emma pulled away and left with Patricia, without looking back. I drove back to my apartment, a dingy one-bedroom that the estate support paid for. It was in a rough part of town, but it was shelter. I'd found work at a coffee shop, minimum wage plus tips. Combined with the court-ordered support, I could barely survive. I'd gone from a comfortable life to poverty in a matter of weeks. The investigation Judge Morrison ordered was thorough. Margaret hired a private investigator to look into Patricia's relationship with Michael and the circumstances around the will. Meanwhile, months dragged by. I saw Emma twice a week, every week. Slowly, painfully slowly, our relationship started to heal. She began to seem less influenced by Patricia's poison and more like my daughter again. She started calling me Mom again around month 3. But then something strange happened. 6 months after Michael's death, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Martinez? This is Detective Sarah Torres with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. I need to speak with you about your late husband's finances. The voice was professional but serious. Is this about the estate dispute? I have a lawyer handling that. I was confused about why the police would be involved.
No, ma'am.
This is a criminal investigation. We'd like you to come to the station tomorrow morning. Bring your attorney if possible. Detective Torres gave me an address and a time, then hung up. I immediately called Margaret. What the hell is going on? I don't know, but this is interesting. Let me make some calls. Margaret's voice held a note of excitement I didn't understand. The next morning, Margaret and I sat in a small interview room at the police station. Detective Torres was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She spread a series of documents across the table. Mrs. Martinez, are you aware that your late husband was under investigation for securities fraud and money laundering? Detective Torres watched my face carefully. My mouth fell open.
What? No.
That's impossible. Michael would never. I assure you, it's very possible. We've been investigating Michael Martinez for 2 years. He was running an elaborate Ponzi scheme through his investment firm, defrauding clients of approximately $80 million. Detective Torres pushed a document toward me. This is just one of many accounts he used to hide stolen money. Please take a second to subscribe to the channel. We're building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your click really helps us grow. Hit that subscribe button now. I stared at the papers, unable to process what I was seeing. But the $33 million that Emma inherited, is that stolen money?
Partially.
About $12 million of it is believed to be proceeds from fraud. We're working with federal prosecutors to seize those assets. The remaining $21 million appears to be legitimately earned, though we're still investigating. Detective Torres leaned back in her chair. Here's where it gets interesting. We have evidence that Patricia Caldwell was aware of her son's criminal activities and may have helped him hide assets. Margaret leaned forward. What kind of evidence? Email communications, wire transfers, meetings with known money launderers. Patricia was deeply involved in Michael's business affairs, much more than a typical parent would be. We believe she was helping him set up offshore accounts and shell corporations. Detective Torres pulled out more documents. Which brings us to the will. We believe Patricia manipulated Michael into creating that will to ensure she maintained control of the assets after his death. If the money went to you, Mrs. Martinez, you might have discovered the fraud and reported it. But if it went to Emma with Patricia as guardian, she could continue to hide the money. My mind reeled. So, Michael was a criminal? And Patricia knew about it? We believe so. We're building a case against Patricia for money laundering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and obstruction of justice. Your late husband would have faced serious charges if he'd lived. Detective Torres's voice softened slightly. I know this is a lot to take in, but I need to ask you, did you have any knowledge of your husband's criminal activities?
No.
I swear to God, I had no idea. Michael told me he worked in investment banking. He never discussed the details with me. I trusted him completely. I felt sick to my stomach. Everything I thought I knew about my husband was crumbling. We believe you. We've been monitoring your finances for months, and there's no indication you were involved or benefited knowingly from the fraud. In fact, it appears you were kept deliberately in the dark. Detective Torres gathered her documents. We'll be in touch as this investigation continues. You may be called to testify. Margaret and I left the police station in shock. This changes everything, Margaret said. If Patricia goes to prison, guardianship of Emma reverts to you automatically. And if a significant portion of the estate is seized as proceeds of crime, the will becomes partially void anyway. 3 days later, I sat in the visitation center with Emma when Denise rushed in, her face pale. I'm sorry, but we need to end today's session early. There's been an incident. What kind of incident? I stood up, my heart racing. Patricia Caldwell has been arrested. FBI agents executed a search warrant on her home this morning. Denise looked at Emma sympathetically. Emma, honey, you're going to need to come with me. We need to find you a temporary placement.
No.
I stepped forward. She's my daughter. She comes with me. Ma'am, I don't have authorization, Denise started. Call Judge Morrison.
Call her right now.
My daughter is not going into foster care when I'm standing right here. My voice was steel. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers. If you've been following this journey, please subscribe now. Your support makes this content possible. Judge Morrison granted emergency custody within 2 hours. Emma came home with me to my tiny apartment. She was quiet, processing everything. I made her favorite dinner, spaghetti with meatballs, and we sat on my thrift store couch eating in silence. Mom, Emma's voice was small. Did Dad really do bad things? I thought carefully about my answer. I think Dad made some very bad choices. I don't know why he made them, but they were wrong. That doesn't mean he didn't love us. Grandma Patricia said you were the bad one. She said you were trying to ruin everything. Emma's eyes filled with tears. I know, baby. But I never stopped fighting for you. Not for one single day. I pulled her close, and this time she didn't pull away. She sobbed into my shoulder like she had at Michael's funeral, and I held her and cried with her. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Patricia was denied bail, considered a flight risk due to offshore accounts and foreign properties. The FBI seized $12 million from the estate, leaving $21 million for Emma. Federal prosecutors filed charges against Patricia. The media had a field day with the story. Wealthy widow arrested in son's Ponzi scheme. I got a call from Richard Beaumont, of all people. Mrs. Martinez, I need to meet with you. It's important. We met at a coffee shop, neutral territory. Richard looked haggard, like he'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. I want to apologize. I didn't know about the criminal activity. Patricia told me you were a gold digger trying to steal from your daughter. I believed her. I'm sorry. Why are you telling me this? I was wary of trusting anything he said. Because I reviewed the actual will, the one you and Michael signed 5 years ago. The one Thomas Henderson has. That's the valid will, not the one Patricia had me present. Richard pulled out a file. The will I showed the court was a forgery. A very good forgery, but a forgery nonetheless. Patricia had it created by someone in her network. The signatures were forged, the witness names were fake. Michael never changed his will. Everything should have gone to you and Emma jointly, with you as guardian, exactly as you remembered. I stared at him. Are you serious? Completely. I've already contacted the district attorney and provided evidence. I'll be testifying against Patricia. And I'm filing the correct will with the probate court today. You should have full access to the estate within a week. Richard looked genuinely remorseful. I was played, and I helped Patricia hurt you. I'm sorry. Margaret verified everything Richard said. The forged will was exposed. The real will was filed and validated. Within 3 weeks, I had full access to the estate. $21 million plus our home, the accounts I'd known about, and Michael's life insurance policy. Emma and I moved back into our house. We changed the locks that Patricia had changed, erasing that violation. Patricia's trial was set for 6 months later. In the meantime, I had to figure out what to do with my life. I was suddenly wealthy, but that money came with blood on it. Victims of Michael's fraud had lost their life savings. I contacted the federal prosecutors and offered to set up a victim compensation fund. I established a trust with $5 million to help repay the people Michael had hurt. It wouldn't make everything right, but it was something. Please subscribe to help us reach our goal of 1,000 subscribers. We're building something special here, and your subscription supports this channel's growth. Emma started therapy to process everything she'd been through. I started therapy too. We both needed help untangling the lies from the truth, the manipulation from reality. Slowly, we began to heal. Our relationship grew stronger. We talked openly about Michael, about his good qualities and his terrible choices. I didn't want Emma to hate her father, but I also didn't want her to make excuses for him. Patricia's trial was swift. The evidence was overwhelming. Emails, wire transfers, testimony from Richard Beaumont, testimony from Michael's former business partners who'd taken plea deals. Patricia was convicted on all counts: conspiracy, money laundering, fraud, obstruction of justice, and several counts of forgery. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in federal prison. Before she was taken away, Patricia looked at me across the courtroom. Her face was haggard, her silver hair now mostly gray. The expensive clothes were gone, replaced with prison scrubs. For just a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Regret? Hatred? I wasn't sure. Then she was gone, led away by federal marshals. I should have felt triumphant, but I mostly felt sad. This woman had poisoned her own son's mind, had manipulated him into criminal activities, had tried to steal my daughter and my life. But she was also Emma's grandmother, Michael's mother. Her downfall was just one more tragedy in a long line of tragedies. Emma and I left the courthouse hand in hand. We'd survived. Against all odds, we'd survived. The money would help us build a new life, a better life. I'd found work I actually enjoyed, volunteering with other women going through divorce and family court battles, using my experience to help them navigate the system. The estate gave us security, but the work gave me purpose. A year after Michael's death, Emma and I stood in our backyard. We'd planted a small garden there, something we'd never done when Michael was alive. Emma loved it, loved watching things grow. She was 14 now, taller, more mature. She'd been through hell, but she was strong. "Mom, do you think Dad knew what Grandma was doing?" Emma asked as she watered the tomatoes. "I think he knew some of it. Maybe not all of it. People make bad choices when they're scared or weak. Your dad wasn't a bad person, but he made very bad decisions." I'd repeated versions of this answer hundreds of times, trying to help Emma understand. "I miss him, but I'm also angry at him." Emma's voice cracked. "You can be both. It's okay to feel both." I hugged her tight. "We're going to be okay, baby. We're going to be better than okay." And we were. We really were. The path forward wasn't easy. Some days were harder than others. But we had each other, and we had truth, and that was enough. 2 years after everything fell apart, I got a letter from Patricia in prison. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. The handwriting was shaky, nothing like Patricia's usual precise script. "Jennifer, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to understand what happened, even if it doesn't change anything. Michael wasn't supposed to die. None of this was supposed to happen this way. When he started getting involved in risky investments, I thought I was helping him. I thought I was protecting our family's legacy. One bad decision led to another, and before we knew it, we were in too deep. The Ponzi scheme wasn't planned. It evolved from desperation. When Michael died, I panicked. I knew the truth would come out eventually, and I thought if I controlled the estate through Emma, I could fix everything before anyone discovered what we'd done. I thought I could protect Emma's inheritance, protect the family name. I convinced myself I was doing the right thing. I lied to you. I manipulated you. I took your daughter from you when you just lost your husband. There's no excuse for that cruelty. I told myself you were the enemy, but you never were. You were just a woman who loved my son, and I destroyed you for it. Emma won't speak to me. I've written her dozens of letters, but they all come back unopened. I understand why. I stole months of her life, filled her head with lies about you. I damaged her when she was most vulnerable. That's unforgivable. I'm dying, Jennifer.
Pancreatic cancer.
The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. I'll die in prison, and I deserve that. But before I go, I needed you to know that I see what I did. I see it clearly now, without all the justifications and rationalizations I used to make myself feel better. You were a good wife to Michael. You were exactly the partner he needed, even if he was too weak to appreciate it. You're a good mother to Emma. She's lucky to have you fighting for her. I'm sorry. I know those words mean nothing after everything I've done, but they're all I have left to give you. Patricia. I read the letter 3 times, sitting at my kitchen table. The kitchen where Patricia had stood 2 years ago and told me to pack my things and leave.
So much had changed.
Everything had changed. Make sure to subscribe if you're invested in this story. We're working toward 1,000 subscribers, and we're so close. Click that subscribe button to be part of our community. Emma came downstairs for breakfast, already dressed for school. She was 15 now, growing into a beautiful young woman. She'd made it through the worst and come out stronger. She had friends again, her grades were excellent, and she'd started volunteering at an animal shelter on weekends.
She was going to be okay.
What's that? Emma nodded at the letter. A letter from your grandmother. I didn't hide things from Emma anymore. We'd learned that lesson the hard way. Emma's face hardened. I don't want to read it. I'm not asking you to.
But I want you to know she's sick.
She's dying. I watched Emma's reaction carefully. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Good. Emma?
No, Mom.
I know you want me to be forgiving and mature, but I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. She tried to destroy you. She took me away from you and filled my head with poison. She helped Dad steal from people who trusted him.
I don't care if she's dying.
I don't care if she's sorry. Emma's voice was fierce. I understood. I did. But I also knew that carrying that anger would hurt Emma more than it would hurt Patricia. You don't have to forgive her. But don't let hating her take up space in your heart. She's already taken enough from us. Emma considered this. Did you forgive her?
No.
But I let go of the anger because it was exhausting me. There's a difference. I folded the letter and put it in a drawer. You'll figure out what feels right for you, and whatever you decide is okay. Emma hugged me tight. I love you, Mom. Thank you for never giving up on me. I will never give up on you. Never. I held my daughter and felt grateful for every moment we had together. 3 months later, I got notification that Patricia had died in prison. There was no funeral, no service. Her assets, what little remained after legal fees and restitution, were left to Emma in a trust she couldn't access until she was 25. Emma shrugged when I told her. Donate it to the Victim Compensation Fund. I don't want anything from her.
We did exactly that.
Patricia's final assets went to help the people Michael had hurt. It felt like the right ending to a terrible story. Life moved forward. Emma applied to colleges. She wanted to study psychology to help people who'd been through trauma like she had. I was so proud of the person she was becoming. We'd taken the worst thing that could happen and found a way through it. I started dating again, carefully. A man named David, a high school teacher who was kind and patient and nothing like Michael. It was slow and uncertain, but it felt good to open my heart again. Emma approved, which mattered more than anything. We sold the house in Charlotte eventually. Too many ghosts, too many memories, both good and bad. We bought a smaller place in Asheville, up in the mountains. Fresh start, new beginning. Emma loved it. I loved it. We were building something new, something clean. Your subscription helps us tremendously. We're so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers. If this story has moved you, please click subscribe right now. It takes just a second and makes a huge difference. One evening, Emma and I sat on our new porch watching the sunset over the mountains. The sky was painted in purples and oranges, absolutely beautiful. Emma leaned against my shoulder, comfortable and content. Mom, can I ask you something? Emma's voice was thoughtful. Always, baby. Anything. Do you regret marrying Dad? Knowing everything that happened, would you go back and change it? Emma looked up at me with those serious eyes. I thought about it honestly.
No.
Because marrying your dad gave me you, and you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Were there terrible things?
Yes.
Did he make awful choices? Absolutely. But I also had 15 years of genuine happiness before everything fell apart. I had love, I had partnership, I had a family. The ending was horrible, but the middle parts were good. I can hold both truths at the same time. Emma nodded slowly. That makes sense.
I feel the same way about Dad.
I hate what he did, but I still love the dad he was before I knew about all the bad stuff. Does that make me a bad person?
No, sweetheart.
It makes you human.
People are complicated.
They can be good and bad simultaneously. Your dad loved you completely, that was real. He also made terrible choices that hurt people. Both things are true. I kissed the top of her head. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the day end and the stars begin to appear. I thought about Patricia's letter, about her final apology. I thought about Michael, about the man I'd loved and the criminal I'd never known. I thought about how close I'd come to losing everything. But I hadn't lost everything. I'd lost a lot, but not everything. Emma and I had survived. We'd fought our way through hell and come out the other side. We were scarred, but we were whole. We were together. Mom? Emma's voice was sleepy. I'm glad you never gave up. Even when Grandma Patricia took me away and said all those things, I knew deep down you'd come for me. I knew you'd fight. Emma's words made my eyes water. Always, baby. I will always fight for you. That's what mothers do. I held her close, this miracle child who'd been through so much. The victims of Michael's fraud gradually received compensation. It took years, but between the seized assets, the fund I'd established, and insurance claims, most people recovered at least 60% of their losses. It wasn't everything, but it was something. I met with some of them, apologized on Michael's behalf, even though I knew it couldn't undo the damage. Most were kind. A few were angry, which I understood. I let them yell at me, let them express their rage. It was the least I could do. Emma graduated high school with honors. On graduation day, she gave a speech about resilience and truth. She didn't mention the specifics of what we'd been through, but everyone in that auditorium could feel the weight behind her words. I cried through the entire speech, so proud I thought my heart would burst. If you've made it this far in the story, we'd love to have you subscribe. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers by clicking that button. Your support means the world. She got into her first choice college, a small liberal arts school in Vermont. We drove up together to move her into her dorm. Saying goodbye was one of the hardest things I'd ever done, but it was also beautiful. She was ready. She was strong. She was going to be okay. I drove back to Asheville alone, crying most of the way. But they were good tears, proud tears. We'd made it. Against impossible odds, we'd actually made it. David proposed 6 months later. It was simple, quiet, just the two of us hiking in the mountains. I said yes. Emma was thrilled when we told her. We got married in a small ceremony with close friends and family. Emma walked me down the aisle. It felt right, circular somehow. She'd been there through my worst days, so she deserved to be there for one of my best days. Life wasn't perfect. I still had nightmares sometimes about Patricia changing the locks, about Emma being taken from me. I still felt angry when I thought about Michael's lies and the people he'd hurt. But those moments became fewer and further between. Healing isn't linear, but it is possible. Emma called me one Sunday afternoon during her sophomore year of college. Mom, I've been thinking about something. What's that, honey? I want to change my major. I don't want to study psychology anymore. Emma sounded nervous, like she thought I'd be disappointed. Okay, what do you want to study instead? I kept my voice neutral, supportive. Finance. Business ethics specifically. I want to help prevent what Dad did from happening to other people. I want to teach people how to spot fraud, how to protect themselves. I want to take the worst thing that happened to us and use it for good. Emma's voice grew stronger as she explained. Is that crazy? That's not crazy at all. That's beautiful. I think it's perfect. I was crying again, but happy tears. My daughter was taking her trauma and transforming it into purpose. Emma graduated with her degree in finance and business ethics. She got a job with the SEC, investigating securities fraud. She was good at it, really good. She understood how fraudsters thought because she'd grown up with one. She could spot the warning signs, the red flags that others missed. She saved people from losing their life savings. She made a real difference. I wrote a book about our experience, changing names to protect privacy. It was part memoir, part guide for women navigating divorce, estate battles, and family court. It became an unexpected bestseller. Women reached out from all over the country, sharing their stories of manipulation, gaslighting, and survival. I started a foundation to provide legal assistance to women in situations like mine, women who'd been left with nothing when their spouses died or divorced them. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're building a community of survivors and supporters, working toward that 1,000 subscriber milestone. Your click matters. Patricia's story became a cautionary tale. Business schools used it as a case study in fraud and ethics. Law schools examined the legal implications of her manipulation. True crime podcasts dissected every detail. I declined most interview requests. Our story was ours, not entertainment. But I did agree to speak at a few conferences about financial abuse and legal rights in marriage. 5 years after Michael's death, Emma and I returned to Charlotte. We visited his grave for the first time since the funeral. The headstone was simple: Michael James Martinez, beloved father and husband. No dates, no epitaphs. We'd chosen that wording years ago, before everything fell apart. I'd considered changing it after learning the truth, but decided against it. He had been beloved once. That was true even if everything else was complicated. "Hey, Dad," Emma said softly, placing flowers on the grave. "I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I wish you could see who I've become. I wish things had been different. I wish you'd made better choices. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm just sad about what could have been." I added my own flowers. "I loved you, Michael. I really did. I wish I'd known what you were going through. Maybe I could have helped. Maybe things would have turned out differently. But I survived what you and your mother tried to do to us. Emma and I both survived. We're stronger than you ever knew." We stood there for a while, saying our private goodbyes. Then we walked away, hand in hand, toward the parking lot and the life we'd built from the ashes. Emma got married when she was 28. Her husband Jake was a teacher, kind and honest, and wonderful. Their wedding was joyful, full of love and laughter. David and I danced, Emma and Jake danced, everyone danced. It was the opposite of darkness, pure light and happiness. I became a grandmother when Emma was 30. A beautiful baby girl they named Sophia. Holding her for the first time, I cried. Not sad tears this time, but tears of gratitude. We'd come so far. So much had been taken from us, but so much had been rebuilt. "Mom, would you be offended if we didn't give her any family names?" Emma asked nervously. "I love you, but I don't want to name her after anyone from the past. I want her to have a completely fresh start." "I think that's perfect," I said honestly. "She's a new beginning. She gets to grow up in a world where she's safe and loved and told the truth. That's the best gift you can give her." Emma smiled with relief. "Thank you for understanding. And thank you for everything you did to get us here. If you'd given up, if you'd let Patricia win, I wouldn't have this life. Sophia wouldn't exist. You saved us." "We saved each other," I corrected. "You gave me something to fight for." Please hit that subscribe button if you've connected with this journey. We're so close to 1,000 subscribers, and your support helps us continue sharing stories like this one. Sophia grew into a happy, healthy child. She never knew about the darkness that came before her. She never knew her great-grandmother died in prison or that her grandfather was a criminal. She just knew love and safety and family. That was exactly as it should be. On what would have been Michael's 60th birthday, I found myself thinking about him for the first time in months. Not with anger or sadness, just with a kind of distant curiosity about who he really was. Had he been a good man who made bad choices? A bad man who pretended to be good? Somewhere in between? I'd never know for sure, and I'd made peace with that uncertainty. Emma called that evening like she always did on significant dates. "You okay, Mom?" "I'm okay. I was just thinking about your dad, wondering if he would have been proud of the woman you've become." I settled into my favorite chair, David reading nearby. I think he would have been. I think underneath all the fear and bad decisions, he wanted good things for me. He just went about it in the worst possible way. Emma's voice was thoughtful. "I'm teaching Sophia about making good choices, about being honest even when it's hard. I'm teaching her what I wish Dad had learned." "You're an amazing mother, and I'm so proud of you." I meant every word. "I learned from the best," Emma said softly. "You taught me what real strength looks like. Not the fake strength of control and manipulation, but the real strength of honesty and perseverance. That's what I want Sophia to see in me." We talked for another hour about nothing and everything. When we hung up, I felt content. Truly content in a way I never thought possible during those dark days in the motel room, during those awful supervised visits, during the trial. David looked up from his book. "You're smiling." "I was just thinking about how far we've come. How close I came to losing everything, and how we fought our way back." I went to sit beside him. Patricia thought she could destroy me. She thought I was weak because I'd stayed home with Emma, because I'd trusted Michael with the finances, because I'd chosen family over career. "But she was wrong," David said, pulling me close. "She was so wrong. I wasn't weak. I was exactly strong enough to survive her, to get Emma back, to build a new life. She underestimated me completely." I laughed. "You know what the funny thing is? If she'd just been kind to me after Michael died, if she'd worked with me instead of against me, I probably never would have questioned anything. I trusted Michael completely. I would have let her help manage the estate. I would have believed whatever she told me about the finances. Her own cruelty is what made me start looking for answers." "Her worst impulses destroyed her," David agreed. "She couldn't help herself. She had to be cruel, had to dominate. And that cruelty exposed everything." I thought about Patricia's final letter, her deathbed confession. She'd seen it too at the end. She'd understood that her need for control had destroyed everything she claimed she was trying to protect. But the realization came too late to change anything. Before you go, please subscribe to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. We're building something meaningful here, and every subscriber helps us grow. Just click that button below. Emma published her first book when she was 35. It was a guide for fraud prevention, written for regular people who didn't have financial expertise. It was practical, accessible, and deeply personal. In the introduction, she wrote about her father's crimes without excusing them, about how fraud destroys families and communities. The book became required reading in several college business ethics courses. I was at her book launch, watching her speak to a room full of people who'd been touched by fraud in some way. She was poised, knowledgeable, compassionate. She took what could have broken her and forged it into something that helped others. I'd never been more proud. After her speech, a woman approached her. "My husband stole everything and left me with nothing. I didn't know where to turn until I found your mother's foundation. They helped me get legal representation I could never have afforded. They helped me understand my rights. I got custody of my kids and enough support to survive."
Thank you.
"Thank your mother. You saved my life." Emma hugged the woman tightly. "We're just paying forward what others did for us. No one should have to fight those battles alone." That was our legacy. Not the $33 million, not the house or the assets. Our legacy was helping other women fight back, helping them understand they weren't alone, showing them that survival was possible. We took our trauma and transformed it into hope for others. David and I retired to a small beach house in South Carolina. Emma and her family visited often, Sophia running on the beach and building sandcastles. Life was simple and good. I volunteered at a women's shelter, teaching financial literacy classes. Small ways of helping, small ways of making a difference. On a warm evening 20 years after Michael's death, I sat on the beach, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in brilliant oranges and pinks, reflecting on the water. I thought about everything that had happened, all the pain and struggle, and eventual triumph. A younger version of me would have been terrified if she could see the future, if she knew what was coming. That Jennifer standing at Michael's grave, holding Emma's hand, couldn't have imagined the journey ahead. She couldn't have imagined being thrown out of her home, losing her daughter, discovering her husband was a criminal, fighting her way through the legal system. But she also couldn't have imagined the strength she'd find, the life she'd rebuild, the love she'd discover with David, the pride she'd feel watching Emma transform pain into purpose, the joy of holding her granddaughter, the satisfaction of helping other women find their way through similar darkness. If I could go back and tell that terrified woman in the motel room anything, I'd tell her, "You're going to be okay. Better than okay. This is going to break you open, but you'll heal stronger. Your daughter will come back to you. You'll find love again. You'll discover you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. Hold on.
Keep fighting.
It gets better." Emma joined me on the beach, Sophia chasing waves nearby. "What are you thinking about, Mom?" "Just grateful. For all of it, even the hard parts. Because the hard parts led us here." I squeezed her hand.
Me too.
Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Dad hadn't died, if everything had just continued as it was. Would the fraud have eventually been discovered? Would we have lost everything anyway? Was his death almost a mercy in some weird way? Emma's voice was thoughtful. "We'll never know. And that's okay. We can only deal with what actually happened, not what might have been." I watched Sophia play, so innocent and happy. "You've given her something neither you nor I had at her age, complete honesty. No secrets, no lies, just truth and love." "That's all I ever wanted," Emma said softly. "One more time, if this story has resonated with you, please subscribe. We're working to build a community of 1,000 subscribers who believe in stories of survival and strength. Your click makes a difference." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in deep purples. Another day ending. Another day survived. I'd survived so many days I thought would destroy me. But destruction and transformation aren't always the same thing. Sometimes what feels like the end is actually a painful beginning. Patricia had tried to destroy me. She'd taken everything she could take. But she couldn't take my determination, my love for my daughter, my will to fight. Those things were mine, untouchable. And in the end, those were the things that mattered. I thought about that day she'd stood at my door and told me to leave, told me I was worthless, told me I didn't deserve anything I'd built. I thought about her final letter, her deathbed apology. She'd been wrong about me from the start. I was never weak. I was never a parasite. I was never worthless. I was a mother who fought through hell to protect her daughter. I was a woman who survived betrayal and manipulation and still found ways to love. I was a person who took tragedy and transformed it into purpose. I was strong in ways Patricia never understood, strong in ways that didn't require dominance or control.
And Emma?
Emma was proof that we could break cycles, that trauma didn't have to define us, that we could take the worst things that happened to us and use them to become better people. She was everything I'd hoped she'd be, and more. Sophia called out from the waves, laughing. Emma went to join her daughter, and I watched them play together. 3 generations of women, connected by love and struggle and survival. We'd come so far. I closed my eyes and felt the ocean breeze on my face. Somewhere in the distance, a seabird called. The waves crashed rhythmically, endless and eternal. I was 60 years old. I'd lived through more than most people could imagine. And I was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy. That was my revenge, in the end. Not Patricia's prison sentence or the exposure of her crimes. My revenge was this. I survived. I thrived. I built a beautiful life from the ruins she tried to leave me in. I won, not by destroying her, but by refusing to let her destroy me. Patricia had asked, "Who are you without my son? What are you worth?" Now I knew the answer. I was Jennifer Martinez, survivor and fighter. I was a mother, a grandmother, a wife, a friend, an advocate. I was worth everything, and nothing she did could change that. The stars began to appear in the darkening sky, tiny points of light pushing back the darkness. That was us. Emma and me. Sophia. All the women I'd helped through the foundation. We were points of light, refusing to be extinguished. I stood up and walked toward my daughter and granddaughter, toward the life I'd fought so hard to build. Behind me, the past. Ahead of me, the future. And right here, right now, in this moment, peace. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so now to help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support means everything. Until next time, remember, you're stronger than you know, and survival is always possible.